Welcome back to the King Film Sports Bracketology for the 2023 college basketball season, and let's get right into it with our seeding picks for this first episode. And at the number one overall seed, we've got Purdue. They just lost to Indiana, but they are still the best team in the nation with just 2 losses. Edie is putting up big numbers for this team. I expect them to do great things going forward. Then in the 8-9 matchup, we're going to stay in this southern region. We've got Missouri against Boise State. Both these teams have been having good seasons here. Missouri has a couple head-scratching losses, including the 30-point loss to Kansas, but they have good wins over Illinois, Kentucky, and Iowa State in the Big 12 SEC Challenge. So despite their 500 conference record, we like Missouri here. Boise State also has some critical wins in a big Mountain West this year, and they have a nice out-of-conference win against Texas A&M. TCU at the 5 seed, they've had a good season, but right now they're missing Mike Miles and Eddie Lampkin, so I expect them to fall in the future. This is the same TCU team that almost lost to Arkansas Pine Bluff and lost outright at home to Northwestern State when they didn't have Mike Miles earlier. It's time to sound the alarms if you're TCU. They need their other players to step up. And just a reminder, we will not be going over the at-large bid. So as you see there, Utah Valley and Bradley here at the 12 and 13 lines, we will not be going over these teams because they would need to win their conference outright to be able to make the tournament as of today. The 6 seed San Diego State, ranked number 25th in the nation at the moment. They have a few good wins, lost 2 in the Maui Gym, but beat Ohio State there. Number 3 seed Baylor has been streaking as of late after their 0-3 conference start, and the return of Everyday John should bode well for this squad. Number 7 seed, we've got Iowa, who got off to a rough start in conference play, losing a quad 4-1 to Eastern Illinois there. That really hampered them, but they have a couple key wins over Seton Hall, Clemson, and Iowa State out of conference, and as of late, they've been better in conference with wins over Indiana, Rutgers twice, and Northwestern. Going on down, we've got Oklahoma State, who has been up and down in the Big 12, but it's such a hard conference that they are afforded a little more leeway. They're 5-5 in conference, 14-9 overall. Don't really have many out-of-conference wins, but they beat Iowa State, Oklahoma, and West Virginia in conference, in addition to TCU this last Saturday. Moving on to the 2 line, we've got Tennessee, and Tennessee has a ton of marquee wins, and they are the top 2 seed here, as I see it, but their offense has not been rolling as of late in their 2 last games against Florida on the road and against Auburn at home, the latter of which they did win. They've been averaging fewer points than SIU, the worst offense in the nation, so they've got to clean that up in Knoxville. Moving on elsewhere in the SEC, we've got Bama at number 1. Only a couple head-scratching losses for them to Gonzaga and Oklahoma, but overall, very solid resume here. This is another one of these offensive Alabama teams. Then recently ranked NC State. I'm only giving them the 8 line here as I don't really value their resume coming out of the ACC as much. They don't have any great out-of-conference wins, and while they have a couple of the better teams in the ACC, Duke, Miami, and a road game at Wake Forest, I just don't think there's enough on this resume to really bump them down to a 7 or even 6 seed. They would play against number 9, USC, who has a couple big wins against UCLA and Auburn. Number 5, Kansas State. Some people might have them a bit lower, but their recent loss to Texas bumped them down to the 5 seed here. Otherwise, I'd have them at the 4 line. Iowa State in the 4 slot here, just coming off of that brutal loss to Texas Tech the last Monday, but they bounced back over the weekend with a big win over Kansas. If this Iowa State team can get going, they are going to be a danger in the Big 12 down the stretch. Then we've got Providence at the 6 line. They just lost against Xavier, but they have a win over Marquette at Seton Hall and UConn on their resume already, and they will look to build it with a home date against Xavier and Creighton coming up in Big East play. At the number 11 slot, we've got West Virginia. They've just started to get going in Big 12 play, got that big win over Auburn in the SEC Big 12 Challenge. So even though some of these Big 12 teams don't have the best conference record, they were able to secure another Power 5 win over the SEC. So I think that should count for them at least a little bit. Then number 3, UConn pretty much ran the table in the out-of-conference, getting quality wins over Alabama, Iowa State, Oklahoma State, and Florida, but they struggled in Big East play and don't really have many marquee wins besides an injured Creighton team. They'll look to get one at home against Marquette tomorrow or today, whenever you're watching this. But UConn had such a great out of conference that they will be at the 3 seed for now, but we'll see what happens down the stretch in Big East play. Another Big East team, number 7 seed Creighton, getting way better now that they have all of their pieces back for them. They suffered a 6-game losing streak over the out of conference, playing some marquee games that they just couldn't win. The good thing about the marquee games, they didn't hurt too much, but now Creighton is ranked and rolling again. I expect them to fly up these seed lines. They have a couple challenging games in the Big East to try and get their seeding back. At the 10 slot, we've got Arkansas, who actually played Creighton already, so this isn't a realistic matchup. I'll focus more on the seeds as we get closer to the tournament, but I wanted to give the most accurate reflection of what a potential tournament that happened today would look like. They have a marquee win over a ranked San Diego State team, and in conference they beat Missouri and Texas A&M as well. Pretty scant start by the Razorbacks, but they have a couple home dates in conference with ranked teams, so they will look forward to those. Finally, number 2, Texas had to drop them down a line after their loss against Kansas, but it's super hard to win in the road in the Big 12. And as I already mentioned, they just got that win at Kansas State on Saturday. So let's move on to the bottom of the bracket. And if you're seeing these blank 11 seed slots, we'll get to the bubble picture later. So if you're a fan of a bubble team, go to the end to see who those are. But let's start with number 1, Kansas. Just got that win over Texas. A great bounce back for them after the loss at Iowa State over the weekend. Number 8, Nevada's taking care of back-to-back ranked opponents at home this season in the Mountain West. Some may have them at the 9 seed, I have them at the bottom 8, but they would play number 9, Michigan State. Lost a tough one against Purdue, but overall have a pretty solid resume this year in the Big Ten. Then got the best win of the season, perhaps, besides Rutgers' win on the road, but we'll get to them in a second against Purdue this Saturday. Let's move on to the number 4 seed, recently upgraded St. Mary's. They're at the top of the 4 line here after beating Gonzaga at home. We'll see if they can hold on to their undefeated conference record. And if they can, they'll probably go up to the 2 line, which would be a very interesting scenario. Rutgers, as I mentioned, won on the road at Purdue, so that is a great win for them. This is a very defensive Rutgers team. I think they can stay with anyone, especially that Rutgers-Virginia potential matchup it's looking like would be very interesting. I don't know what the over-under would be. It might be like 85, 86 points in that one. 2 of the best defensive teams in the nation. Virginia coming off a loss, though, this past weekend against Va Tech in that rivalry matchup. Then we've got number 7 seed Maryland. They've had an up and down season, and so is the team they are playing, North Carolina. North Carolina is coming off that loss to Duke on Saturday. Number 2, UCLA has had a bit of a bounce back since losing to USC on the road. They have some marquee wins under their belt, but will have to pretty much not drop another game in Pac-12 play just due to the up and down nature of the opponents they can face there. Houston at the number 1 seed, and this is a pretty easy one, only a couple losses in American Conference play. There was a little bit of a debate as to whether they would be the number 1 overall seed today in the AP poll, but they end up at the 1 seed nonetheless in that West Division. Number 8 seed Auburn is toiling down the stretch here. As I mentioned, that road loss against West Virginia, and Auburn badly needs one, but they'll play at Texas A&M tomorrow. We'll see if they can right the ship in that one. New Mexico was the nation's last undefeated team, but now they're at the 9 seed here. They didn't really beat anyone over that stretch except a big win at number 4 St. Mary's on the road, but the Lobos will look to take care of business down the stretch in the Mountain West, where they host Nevada tomorrow night. Number 5, Miami just took care of Duke easily, so I had to up them a seed line in ACC play. Number 4, Gonzaga, as I mentioned, lost to St. Mary's, but they have that nice win over Bama, have a lot of out-of-conference wins, including over aforementioned 9 seed Michigan State on the Carrier Classic. That's a nice neutral site win for them there as well. Number 6, Duke, just lost to Miami, as I mentioned, but beat North Carolina over the weekend. Duke has had an up and down season, but their strength of schedule is pretty high for an ACC team, so we like them at the 6th seed here. Once again, the 11 seeds we'll come back to at the end, but right now I want to urge everyone to subscribe to the Discord. We have a play on the Marquette and UConn game tomorrow, so subscribe to the Discord. The link is in the description for free plays. We're up 13 units on the year already, on track for well over 100 units on the year, so it's a no-brainer. We're giving out free picks every day on the Discord. Then, number 3, Marquette has a very solid resume so far. They beat UConn already, beat Providence, beat Baylor by 26 out of conference, and have a very solid resume. Just the 5 losses for them, 11-2 in conference and contending for that Big East title. Number 7, Illinois. It's been up and down in Big Ten conference play as is expected, but they got a big win over what I'm seeing as now a 2-seed UCLA in the out of conference. They also beat Texas, so they have the marquee wins to prop up their resume. So Illinois is in a good position here at the 7th seed and a very dangerous 7th seed given those top 10 wins I already cited. Number 10 seed Kentucky has been on the rise after they were out of the tournament just a couple weeks ago, but what a couple weeks can do for you here. Kentucky's on a hot streak in the SEC. And finally, number 2 seed Arizona out of the Pac-12 has taken care of business for the most part, besides a head-scratching loss at Utah. But other than that, Arizona's been very good and has a lot of marquee wins that they got during their undefeated out-of-conference slate. Moving on to the first 4, we've got Memphis against Pittsburgh. Memphis already played Texas A&M and Pittsburgh already played Northwestern this year, so I was careful to edit those games in here, but these are the last 4 remaining teams, and then at the bottom there, you see the first 4 out: Penn State, Seton Hall, Utah State, and Mississippi State. So please like and subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments below if you want me to pick the matchups next week. I was just trying to establish the seeds this week.